Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, our guest is Dr. Alex Sheppard. He is one of the founding chiropractors of Oasis Chiropractic in Cottage Grove, Minnesota. He is both a chiropractor and a nutrition response testing practitioner. I got that all out. Their office offers chiropractic care, active rehab, weight loss, body contouring, light therapy, along with one of their newest services, which is nutrition response testing, which is what we will be talking about today. So, Dr. Alex, a little background on him. He began seeking out chiropractic after an injury playing basketball in middle school, and he saw the benefits and stuck with it. So, over the last 20 years, he's worked hard to build an amazing business and helping people find ways to get back to their naturally healthy state of being. So, open to learning new techniques, which is really cool. To help those around him, he found NRT, which is, we're just going to use that abbreviation, we will let him tell you a little bit more about NRT. So he wants to talk a little bit about how it changed his life, how it changed the lives of his family, friends, his patients. So we're just going to let you get into that. We're very excited to have you today to talk more about it.
Yes.
So how did you find out about NRT, and what types of things can you test for with NRT? Can you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me in. This is great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, NRT, honestly, the way I learned about it was through a continuing education class. And, we received those postcards in the mail and they say, "Hey, come to our class." And this particular one said, "Come to our class and get 8 free credits of continuing ed." And I was like, "Hey, I'll take 8 credits,
Wahoo!
especially if it's free. So why not?" So yeah, I showed up and the class was all about nutrition response testing. I had no idea what that was. So let me just back up a bit. And with our chiropractic practice, we had been using vitamins to help support our chiropractic patients. We've been doing that for years. For example, fish oil. We tell people to take fish oil. I'm a big believer in fish oil.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great product. My challenge was that I never had a way of telling the patient which fish oil to take or how much to take.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I ultimately learned at NRT. So we're at this continuing education seminar and they are up front, and, they're pushing on the arms and doing their thing with the vitamin bottles. And I'm like, this totally makes sense. This is essentially what I've been looking for, right? Now I have a technique that I can use to figure out which fish oil everyone needs, right? Tammy might need a fish oil that's different than the fish oil that Jen needs.
Mm-hmm.
So with NRT, we were able to learn this technique and implement that technique for our vitamins.
Nice.
That's awesome. So I've known Dr. Alex for a long time. Like he's an amazing practitioner. And I don't know when we met, but it was so long ago. And he'd been adjusting me for years and years and years. And me and my woo-woo self would come into the chiropractic office and he would tell me all the science of things and he would help adjust me and help keep me healthy. And over the years, I've noticed he's started to get a little bit more woo. And when he went when he went in and took this NRT training, I was so excited because when he came back, he was so stinking excited about doing it. Um, so I was very, very happy to see the energy in you and see that you were seeing benefit in something that traditionally in a clinical setting, it might be seen as woo woo. And
Hmm.
that's actually part of the reason why you're here is because we're like, yes, this is
Yeah.
like something that blends those things together.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's about making sure that we're looking at things from a deeper level. So I kind of want you to describe a little bit more about how it works
Yep.
Yes.
and like why you started doing something that could have been seen as really woo woo in the chiropractic world or in the doctor world
Yep.
in general.
Yeah, explain the arm pushing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we work with a patient for the first time, what we're doing is we're pushing on their arm and we're looking for an arm that is strong and an arm that is weak. So it's basically like the strong arm says yes, The weak arm says no. So we're always asking questions, right? So is this a good vitamin for the body? Yes or no? So that's what we do with the arm. And um, when I first started learning about NRT, I was like, you know what? I need to have my wife do NRT as a patient because she had this neck thing, she had this shoulder thing that would not resolve with chiropractic. And it was a little irritating to me because I'd been a chiropractor for, I don't know, 15 years. I worked with thousands of people, literally. And I'm like, why can't I fix my wife's neck? Why can't I fix my wife's shoulder? So, anyways, she went in for the NRT exam and she was able to find relief for her neck, for her shoulder thing. It turns out that it wasn't physical, it was more of a chemical, nutritional problem. And that's how the NRT really worked with her. But yeah, when we're pushing on your arm, if we find a weakness, then we're going to go through our test kits. We test for foods, we test for immune challenges, heavy metals, um, chemicals. Over the last couple of years, I've started testing. We have a test kit for COVID strains. We have a test kit for vaccines. Those two kits have been super helpful just over the last couple of years. So yeah, that's what we're testing for.
So can you also test for like mental and emotional blocks within people's systems as well?
Yes.
So
Yep.
how often do you see when people come in that they're doing everything right from a physical standpoint and from like putting the right supplementation in their body, and they come in and it's just not working, and you look at their system and it's like, oh, there's something emotional going on. How often do people like to hear that information and actually take that into consideration?
Those might be two different answers.
Yes.
Yeah. People aren't super excited to hear about that, but once they like take a breath and they think about it, then they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense because I've got this thing at home, I've got this thing at work, I've got this thing in my past, and then they're like, oh shoot, he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
um, and when when that person can remove that stressor or at least find a way to handle that mental stress, their physical results improve so much quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how in the world does this actually work? Like, people are probably listening going, oh yeah, you push on my arm and it whatever. So tell us, like, what is the theory behind it? How does it actually work? I know that there's some quantum stuff which I would love to get into the nitty-gritty of.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, so tell us how it actually works.
yeah. So when we start out, we're pushing on the arm, and let's just say the patient has a strong arm, so everything's good. Then I would maybe put a little bit of pressure over their heart, and if that weakens the arm, then that tells me that the heart is weak. And the reason it would go weak is because we are irritating that heart just slightly, and then the body is going to redirect energy to the heart because the heart's more important than the arm. So then the arm goes weak.
Hmm.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
That makes a lot
It
of
does.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does.
So that's like the starting point with NRT. We look for the weak areas in the body, especially the organs. We want to make sure the patient is healthy. So heart,
Yeah.
stomach, liver, kidneys, all that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I know that this works with quantum fields.
Yep.
I want you to talk about what quantum fields are and
Yep.
how that works within the NRT technique.
Yeah, so everything in the world is energy, right? Everything vibrates at a certain energy. For example, right now I'm sitting at a desk. The desk is hard, right? Because that's vibrating at a certain energy. The chair that I'm sitting in is soft, so that has a different energy. So when it comes to the quantum fields, we're looking for things that are compatible with the human body or not compatible. And let's just say I'm testing a patient and their arm is strong, but I grab one of our test vials and let's just say that it's wheat or gluten, something like that. And I hold that vial next to the body and then their arm goes weak. So that would tell me that they're sensitive to wheat or gluten. With a quantum field, though, we can figure out how sensitive they are to it. So once again, their arm is up and they're going weak with the vial. If I move that vial further and further away from their body and they're still going weak, that tells me that they're really sensitive to what's in that vial. So I've had a situation where as far as I can stretch my arm, the patient is still weak, right? So 4 or 5 feet away, that vial is still making that patient weak. So it tells me that they're really sensitive to that, whatever that vial is, but it also tells the patient that, hey, I better pay attention here because I can't literally be within 5 feet of gluten or it's going to cause a problem.
Yeah, yeah. So what is in this creepy vial that you're putting on people?
Yeah. So there's actually what they do is they imprint the homeopathic resonance. So in other words, the vibrational energy onto water. It's not like there's wheat in the vial. I have some heavy metal test vials. It's not like there's heavy metal in there. That would be a little scary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the vials with the homeopathic resonance of the substance, and then that's what we test against.
Okay.
Now, I understand that people can sometimes bring their own things in there too. Like, for instance, if they're curious, if they're sensitive to certain foods or something like that, they can bring that in and you can test with the actual item too, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've had people bring in their vitamins from home. People bring in their foods from home. Um, a lot of like cleaning products, personal care products. I've had people bring like shampoo and soap and stuff like that. Um, I've had people bring alcohol to the office. That's always an interesting appointment. Try to schedule those for the end of the day, right? Yeah, one lady, she was like, I have to have something to drink. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. So she had a variety. I think it was wine. That was her favorite drink. And she brought in a variety of wine and we were testing the different wines. And we were able to find one that her body could handle.
By
So,
that, he does not mean they were drinking it. They were testing it with the muscle test.
Well,
yes,
I don't know
yes.
if he'd tell us anyway.
That's always the joke, right? If you want us to test alcohol, we'll schedule that appointment at the end of the day.
Well, that's super interesting to hear about, like going farther away and all the nuance to it. I didn't realize that there was so much specificity you could get just from understanding the sensitivity of people when you're doing the testing, which also I think leads to why it makes so much more sense to go to a practitioner, because you guys do understand all that stuff and you understand what to look for. And I mean, I know that you can go through the tests really rapidly because you've been doing it for so long, but it's really fascinating how sensitive you are to the testing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've become a lot more sensitive. Sometimes I just pick up the test file and I can tell that that's going to be weak on the patient, right? So, especially with the people I've worked with for longer periods of time, I'm more in tune with what their energy level is. So that's really that's helpful. I use a lot of voice now. So, for example, if I'm testing someone and I would say, you know, is my name Alex? Yes, my arm is strong. Is my name Michael? My arm will go weak. Things like that. Am I wearing a green shirt today? Yes. That's also helpful. I like to use concentrations too. I don't think we've talked about this yet, but let's say the patient is sensitive to, let's use a heavy metal. So let's say the patient is sensitive to mercury. We want to get a concentration. So we do a scale of 0 to 1,000 being the highest concentration level. So maybe the mercury is in their like upper torso, right? So, and that concentration's at 1,000. So I just do that by voice, right? And then maybe the mercury is at a concentration of 500 for their head. If we can establish that concentration right away, then we have something to track moving forward.
So then do you go through, like, if you find that somebody has like lead or they have mold or they have something showing in their system, do you go through, can you ask, is this coming from their home? Is this coming from food? Is this coming, like, how do you break that down so they can figure out how to get rid of it?
Yep, that's the next step. So let's say it is mold, because that's certainly a big issue. Is the mold coming from their food? And then if the answer is yes, then it gets pretty tricky, but we have to figure out, which food it is, or it's probably multiple foods. Is the mold coming from their home? Or here's another way to think about it. Is the mold a current exposure or is it a past exposure? So I use the current and past quite a bit with asbestos, especially with some of my older patients who have lived in older homes, older structures. they were more exposed to asbestos, and that exposure could have been, 30, 40 years ago. So yes, we find asbestos, but it's been exposure from the past.
So then what do you do with that? Like if you know that it's something that they're not being exposed to now, how do you address it within their system?
Yeah. So I would actually prefer that it's stuff from the past because then it's not like a current problem. But yeah, so we use vitamins, we use homeopathics, we use herbals, whatever the patient tests for, we'll find something that is going to help to remove, in this case, the asbestos. It becomes a bigger challenge if they're living in a current situation where they are exposed to asbestos. Maybe they're exposed to mold, right? I had a patient in here. What is he, like 13 or 14-year-old, and the parents found mold in the basement, and lo and behold, the boy's room, his bedroom, was in the basement. So that's going to be an exposure that needs to be handled. Otherwise, what I'm doing is only going to give them so much improvement, right?
Yeah.
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 Wow. There's a lot of things that you can test for. This is an amazing tool for people that have really been struggling to find what's going on in their system. I know when I came in there, I actually saw one of the other practitioners at Dr. Alex's office. And when I went in there, she found all kinds of things in my system, not only physical things, but emotional things, mental things that were going on. And like being intuitive, she would say something and I go, oh crap, that's right. Oh crap, she caught me. Oh crap, I need to deal with that. And it was amazing for me to get that confirmation from somebody else because I know what's going on in my system, whether I want to believe it or not, or whether I want to address it or not. But if somebody else is there calling you out on it, and like no matter what they come up with, okay, this is going on in your system, they're testing, you're seeing that you're holding your arm up, they're pressing down at just lightly pressing down and you're resisting. And as they press down, you can tell immediately if you're weak or strong. And regardless of how much I want to eat gluten, my arm is still going to fall because my body doesn't like it. So I could sit there and resist and try as hard as I can, but I can still feel it and the practitioner can still feel it and reiterate the importance of you addressing the issues that are actually going on in your system so that you can heal. Like, I love that you guys do this work.
Yep.
I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't beat the muscle test. So yeah.
So do you continue to retest then once someone you've kind of figured out the problem and you figured out the supplements that the body wants? Do you continue to retest to see if you need to change the supplements or the amount or, that kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. So with follow-up appointments, we're testing the weak organs, looking for improvement. We're checking the vitamin doses. We can change the dose. We could add in a new product, or we could take away a product. Products work for a while, and then as the body has had enough of that, the body will all of a sudden test weak for that product. So then we remove that product and then replace it if needed.
I think that's actually an excellent point because that's kind of what I preach sometimes too, is that our bodies needs change. And sometimes there's a certain combination of things. Like I don't believe that what I do for people is the only answer. And sometimes you need a multi-pronged approach to it. Sometimes what I do is not the right answer at all. And it needs to be, passed on to something else. But even that needs to be reassessed because once you've dealt with the problem, like for instance with me doing massage, there's a point in time where it's certainly prudent to be doing chiropractic, physical therapy, something like that, because it's like I can continue to relax you, but at some point you need to strengthen this back up and get everything back in place, because we can keep doing this and that's fine. Your body might like it, but you need to now be able to support yourself through these next phases so you can stay better instead of just chasing the problem all the time. And I feel that way we've talked about like essential oils and stuff before, kind of the idea that just because something is natural doesn't mean it's for us. There's always a lot of things that sound really good or have worked really good for other people, but maybe they're just not the right fit for us. And how do we know? Well, NRT. It's a pretty cool opportunity for people to have a really customizable health plan, which I think is fantastic because I think people are looking for more specific things now rather than just like the Band-Aid fix. So,
Yeah, I really like that word customizable because when we do NRT, we're looking for the cause of the patient's health problem, right? So if you come to me and you say, "Oh, I have migraine headaches," I'm like, "Okay." So instead of just taking a over the counter or a prescription med, let's figure out why you're having those migraine headaches, right? Is it a food? Is it a chemical? We can identify those different things with our test kits and then find the product that'll alleviate that. So it's all about finding the cause of the problem
Yeah.
with NRT.
Oh,
So I
that's
remember
really
one
cool.
lady, she started coming in. She was in tough shape. She had had her gallbladder removed, and now she would. It didn't matter what she ate. Whatever she ate, she would have to run to the bathroom, and that had gone on for like a year or whatever. That's just no way to live, right?
No, that
So,
doesn't sound
and
fun.
no, no, it's terrible. So her medical doctors were saying, well, that sometimes happens after you have your gallbladder out, and that's just the way it is. And I'm like, that can't be. So I took her through the test kits, and we identified, I think it was like 5 or 6 foods. Um, and at first she wasn't too pleased about that. She's like, I have to remove all that stuff from my diet. And I'm like, yep. And she's like, okay, fine. But she came back a couple weeks later and she said it made a huge difference. So I know this stuff works. And when you can figure out the cause of the problem, it makes all the difference in the world for that patient.
So
Well, sorry, go ahead.
I'm very curious. So Alex, the first time you ever had NRT done on you, like
Mhm.
had another practitioner work on you,
Yep.
what was your experience? Like, were you just like, oh my gosh? Or were you already a believer at that point before anybody actually touched your arm and did the testing?
Once I could feel the strong and the weak, I was sold. It was like perfect. Um, and when I was tested initially, it made sense to me based on my body, right?
Mhm.
Um, I've got a knee thing, I've got a low back thing, and with the testing. So here's another example, right? So I get my knee adjusted, I get my back adjusted, but they were never like perfect. And then with the testing, with the NRT testing, we're able to find out why they were never perfect. So that made a big difference.
Wow, that's awesome. I
Yeah, I
just
do
love
think
this
that
stuff.
people need to try it to really understand how mind blowing it is when you are the one in control of what's happening to your body and you realize that your body is giving answers. It's kind of connects with in my head a little bit with we talked to a hypnotist a long time ago, and this idea that your subconscious knows all of the things your conscious mind doesn't always acknowledge or doesn't always see it. So it's like your body can give an answer and you can be shocked at that answer. And it's super fascinating. I had actually applied kinesiology done like ages ago prior to even knowing anything about NRT. And yeah, that first time I was just like, this is crazy. I can't believe my body is doing this. So how do you incorporate the NRT then with your chiropractic care?
Yeah, so when I see a chiropractic patient for the first time, I like to figure out. So let's say the chiropractic patient comes in and they've got neck pain, back pain, and shoulder pain. So I want to figure out which of those spots it's a physical problem and which of those spots would be a nutritional problem. So maybe the neck is a nutritional thing and the back and the shoulder are a physical thing. So we would adjust the shoulder, we would adjust the back, and then we would have to find some sort of vitamin, some sort of herbal for that neck pain. And that's actually similar to a patient that came in recently. He had been in a car accident like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, so quite a while ago, and his neck never healed. He said it got a little bit better and then it would get worse, but it was never good. And what I figured out was it was coming from his thyroid. So the neck was damaged in car accident, but because he had stress on that thyroid, his neck was never able to heal.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where a patient comes in with a like a physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
but it's actually related back to an organ. So that made a huge difference for this gentleman. He had neck pain for 7 or 8 years, never really
Yeah.
went away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's another
Have,
way so if I'm going to adjust someone's, let's say that person has back pain and we determine that it's a physical problem, we need to know which level to adjust. We don't just want to kind of guess. So I can use the muscle testing to figure out uh, which segment to adjust and in which direction, right? Do we adjust the left side? Do we adjust the right side? So a lot of different ways that we can use the muscle testing with the adjustments. What I like to do sometimes is we'll muscle test someone's low back, for example, and they're weak. We'll do the adjustment and then we'll muscle test again to show that their low back is strong. So it's a good like before and after demonstration for patients.
Yeah,
have
that's
you
cool.
had a lot of your patients that kind of push back on it and they're like, no, no, this isn't a thing and don't want to do the NRT? Like when you are working with them for chiropractic care, are there people who are a little bit like, yeah, that's a little bit weird for me. I'm not doing that?
Yeah, there are. There's always some, right? But
Yeah.
and that's fine. Not everyone's ready for at that time.
Yeah.
Um, some people are really hurting, and they're really struggling, and they're like, I don't care what you do, just help me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, so that's good. Some people who are a little bit more into the energy, the fields, maybe they're more into alternative care. They'll just say, you know what, do your thing.
Mhm.
I just want to feel better. I don't explain it to me. I don't care. I just want results.
Yeah.
Do you
Those
find
patients are
that?
fun too.
Do you find that a lot? People that are kind of like, I've tried all this stuff, it's just not working. Like, I need something. So people are just like, I'm ready. Tell me what to do. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah, yeah, we actually do really well with that patient. So the person that has tried medications or the person that has tried diet modification or, maybe they're exercising, 5, 6 times a week and something's just not getting better. Um, that's where the NRT really does well because we can figure out what the root cause, right? We can figure out the root cause and yeah, that patient does really well because they're motivated at that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Cool.
too when I have friends who have had, a lot of allergies and stuff like that who maybe tried what is it, the elimination diet, and how much
Mhm.
more effective it would be to know exactly what to take out rather than this whole long
Yep,
process of taking everything out and eating
yep,
a lot of nothing but bland food for a while until you can kind of figure
yep,
out what needs to be added back in. Like, how many
yep,
months of a person's life can you give back to them by
yep,
being able to tell them pretty quickly, like, okay, this is what your body likes, this is what it doesn't like,
yep.
these things will get you results. That's amazing to me because I know people have gone years trying to figure this stuff out,
Yep.
which,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. The food test kit is so helpful. I mean, there's a couple dozen different foods in there, and wheat and gluten that gets a lot of talk, it gets a lot of press, but there's so many other foods out there that are causing problems for people. You
mm-hmm,
identify that right away, and it makes a big difference.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes it is complicated, and I'll tell you because let's say the person is sensitive to corn. Well, they might need to not only remove corn from their diet, but they might need uh, a couple different products to remove the residual corn from the
mm-hmm,
body. So it does get complicated, um, but the testing kind of leads us in the right direction, so we're
mm-hmm.
able to handle all that.
Yeah. One of the things that I found interesting when I went in there and did like my initial testing with you guys is they showed me they had a whole form that you filled out. They got all of your background information. They did all these tests at the beginning, and then they did the nutritional response or nutrition response testing where they actually did the arm testing and all of that. But they gave me a packet of information that said, these are the things that are showing up for you. These are the things that we're going to work on. These are the areas that we need to address first. And within that, it talked about the different foods. And in my brain, it was like, okay, there's dairy, there's gluten, there's these things, and very simple categories that we would traditionally think about with foods. It broke it down into things like natural dairy things and then processed dairy things.
Mhm.
and those are different.
Mhm.
And same with like whole grains and then like processed grains. Those are different. They show
Mhm.
differently in the body. Your body can respond differently to those things. And this system, this technique actually addresses those things as well. It's not just this simple, oh, well, you need to take corn out. It's like you need to take corn out, but you need to look at these things as well. Or you need to take dairy out, but you need to look at these things because you might be responding differently to processed versus unprocessed.
Mhm.
So I really do appreciate this tool. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it's so helpful. I remember, what is he, like 7 or 8 year old boy? He came in and he tested for fruits right off the bat, and the mom just like she had this like look of terror on her face because the kid eats fruit all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, take it easy. Just bring in a variety of fruit next time, and we'll figure it out. And it turns out that it was oranges and one other fruit that he was sensitive to. And I'm like, okay, so just avoid those two. The rest of them are fine. And she
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, that makes it so much easier, right? Because you can avoid two fruits, but
Right.
to avoid all fruit, yeah, it
Yeah.
becomes a challenge, especially with a kid. So,
Well,
um,
especially with a kid who likes to eat fruit. You don't want to take away fruit from
yeah,
them,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Wow. So, Alex, is there anything else that you want us to tell people, share with people? Anything really important that you think they need to know?
I had a patient in the other day. This just kind of popped into my mind. Younger guy, and he was having like numbness in his fingertips, and I just did quick muscle testing because I wanted to figure out where it was coming from, right? So,
Mhm.
this is the chiropractic side of me. Well, the nerves in your fingertips, they pass through your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder, and they come from your neck. And I'm like, well, I could adjust all those spots, but let's just do a quick muscle test and figure out what we actually need to work on. It turned out it was his elbow. So adjusted his elbow and the finger numbness improved. So I don't know, that story just kind of popped into my head, but I really like the muscle testing because we can figure out the root cause. We can be so much more specific, so much more efficient, and the patients just get better results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and that story reminds me, I've heard you talk a lot about neuropathy lately,
Mhm.
and I know that we're in an awareness month or we're coming out of an awareness month having to do with neuropathy. Do you
Mhm.
want to talk a little bit about neuropathy? I know there's a lot of people who are struggling with that, with
Mhm.
diabetes, with all kinds of different types of neuropathy. Do you want to
Sure.
touch on that?
Yeah, yeah. So neuropathy, the pain, the tingling, numbness in the fingers, hands, feet. So we work with those people, and it could be a diabetic neuropathy. It could be a chemotherapy-induced neuropathy. It could have been from an illness even. There's a lot of different causes of the neuropathy. But what we do is we figure out, number one, does the patient need a vitamin to help that nerve heal? So a nutritional deficiency, we want to get that corrected. And then we also want to see, is there an organ contributing to the neuropathy? So, for example, we had a gentleman in, he had done chemo at, I don't know, several years ago, and his feet had bothered him ever since. So I'm like, okay, chemo, that's a toxin on the body. So it ended up being his liver. His liver was needing to detox the leftover chemo, but he was also sensitive to dairy, or the liver was sensitive to dairy. So I was like, you know what? I'll give you products to eliminate the rest of the chemo, and then you avoid dairy, and made a huge difference. He says, yeah, my after like 2 or 3 days of no dairy, my feet felt so much better. So that was an example with chemotherapy induced neuropathy. With diabetic neuropathy, it's really about controlling those blood sugars. Some people struggle with that even after their diabetes diagnosis. But if we can support the pancreas, we can support the patient's dietary habits, they're going to see improvement as well.
I think
That's
that's a great
awesome.
thing to bring up too, because sometimes people hear terms like that, like neuropathy, and maybe they understand that it can be different things that are causing it, but maybe don't clearly understand that there's actually different organs that can be at play with all of this too. It's not
Right.
necessarily we treat the symptom and it's always going to be the same for every person. it's, in order to actually heal, you have to figure out what organ it's coming from. And it could be a lot of different things. I think that's really fascinating.
And that goes back to that quantum field testing as well. So, the feet are a long ways from the liver, but with quantum testing, we can determine, what's causing that symptom in the foot, or, what's causing that symptom in a patient's back. Hips too. There's another one. For whatever reason, I see a lot of patients with hip pain, and quite often it's coming from an organ, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's coming from that abdominal area. With that quantum field testing, we can figure out what's actually causing the pain.
So the long and the short of it is that everybody needs to come see you, because all of their problems are something that you can test for, and they just need to come in and get NRT.
Yep, absolutely. And once we figure out the problem, then we know how to handle it.
So do you offer any type of consultations or anything like that for people?
Yeah, so the initial appointment in my office would be a consultation, muscle testing exam, and then I go over all the results. Mm-hmm. That's the initial appointment. So we usually split that up over 2 days. That way it gives me a chance to kind of process all the information before I go over it with the patient.
Sure. And would they go to your website or give you a call, or what's the best way to contact you if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, so all of our information is on our website, so certainly visit our website. But yeah, call the office, get on my schedule. That's the way to do it initially. Once we have you set up in our system, we actually have an app that you can get on your phone, so it's super convenient.
Fancy.
Fancy, right? You can manage your appointments. You'll be able to see the list of vitamins that you're taking. You'll be able to message me. You can message the staff if you have questions. The app is pretty slick. So
cool.
Yeah.
That wasn't part of the deal when I was going there. That would have been so much easier.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we'll make sure to link your website and all that stuff in our show too.
Yeah. We're always making improvements, Jen. So
I know, because you guys are awesome. Every time I go in there, there's something new, something that somebody's going to tell me about. And I really appreciate that you guys are constantly learning and growing and just open-minded enough to start doing other things to help people rather than just saying, oh, no, we can fix it with this. I just think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
If everybody couldn't tell, I really like what they do. I will sing their praises forever. So yeah, I'm really grateful that you're here today. And like Tammy said, we're going to make sure everything's linked up on our page. We're also going to put Dr. Alex has graciously made an offer for a new patient discount on the muscle testing and the initial consult. So we will put that on our page. So go there so that you can check it out. And then you can go to their website and sign up for that. So you can get healthy again, because we want to see everybody healthy and happy.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and talking to us about it today.
Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation. This was fun. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right.
Bye, everyone. We'll see everybody next week. Bye. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.
Mm-hmm.